could be a 727 right there, maybe even bigger, flying right into the side of the World Trade Center.
It was at least a 727. It was a jet. I couldn't believe my eyes, watching it right above me.
And now you have to move from talk about a...
Trying to mentally prepare for commentary about the events of September 11, I bought a DVD chronicling the events of that day. I made the mistake of assuming that I would get an objective historical account from a CNN-produced documentary. What was I thinking? I was hoping to see if the raw emotions that embraced the nation that day were still inside or tempered by time. First of all, to any of you who wish to get the CNN Tribute American Remembers DVD, please be warned, it is more about the feelings of the CNN family from those behind the camera, those in the field, and those in the newsroom. The events of 9/11 seem almost a backdrop. It was unfortunate, but this is CNN. Gerald Newberry, director of the Health Information Network for the National Education Association, confirmed my concern when he said, "The criticism to the lessons on tolerance is thinly veiled bigotry. If you boil down the concerns of the opposition, what I would call the far right, ultimately it boils down to this. I am not comfortable with my child being in school with someone who's different. I want to keep my child surrounded by people who are identical to me. The world is getting too diverse, and I'm scared." I know of no conservative who has said, "I am not comfortable with my child being in school with someone who's different." What we have said is that we're pretty damn sure that a large group of people spanning many nations and ethnicities who want to destroy all that makes us who we are simply because our religious beliefs don't match theirs. They wish to kill us since we oppose an ideology that mandates by divine law that women be covered from head to toe and stay subservient and uneducated, and where men are mandated to wear regulation-length beards. We reject radical Islamists who believe the infidels must be wiped from the face of the earth. Sorry, Mr. Newberry, these people can be singled out. You can choose to ignore the facts, as CNN did in the America Remembers DVD, when they purposefully omitted the video of Palestinians dancing in the streets shortly after the collapse of the second Twin Tower. But this wasn't a misunderstanding of cultural mores, but a macabre celebration of mass murder in the name of religion. The second annual gathering of American Muslims began Friday with prayers for victims of September 11 and for Muslims who have been harassed since the attacks. Mohammed Noor Abdallah, president of the Islamic Society of North America, said in his opening address that Islam condemns violence and that Muslims, like others in the United States, want the terrorists to be punished. Sounds good. What the hell took you so long? Yes, Muslims here in America are under increased scrutiny, if not harassment. Harassment, both physical and emotional, is wrong. But if you had decided to come out en masse decrying the World Trade Center attacks early on, there wouldn't have been the impression given that you had chosen sides. Instead of speaking out against the massacre, you chose to keep silent against those with whom you had something in common. What is worrisome is the coming week of televised memorials, services, and news retrospectives, complete with new, unreleased footage containing adult language. What is also worrisome is where some educators will go to use the 9/11 tragedy to push liberal, moral equivalence positions unchallenged to captive students. The National Association of School Psychologists has released some guidelines that need to be addressed. A natural reaction to horrific acts of violence like the recent terrorist attacks on the United States is the desire to lash out and punish the perpetrators. You're damn right I feel like lashing out. These Muslim extremists have not made their singular statement and are now going home. There are sleeper cells here. They are waiting for a signal. They are waiting for road rage to return in full force. Remember the hours and days after 9/11 when we all flew flags on our cars and we were civil to each other on the road? We were all family. Even gang members joined the mainstream of our national solidarity. Today, we are again splintered. The middle fingers are flying on the roads, and we as a people are again exposed. While anger is a normal response felt by many, we must ensure that we do not compound an already great tragedy. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. How do we compound the murder of over 2,900 people who went to work on the morning of September 11, 2001, and didn't come home that evening? Did America call for jihad? How many lives have been saved by the obliteration of the Taliban and al-Qaeda terrorists in the mountains of Tora Bora? Should we wait and see if Saddam has changed? Should we take him at his word that if he did have the bomb, he'd be wise and compassionate enough not to use it? Personally, I don't feel like waiting for him to incinerate hundreds of thousands of people just so you liberals can then ask him to just apologize. More importantly, adults must model tolerance and compassion in their words and behavior. They should also encourage children to explore their feelings about prejudice and hate. Explore their feelings about prejudice and hate. Okay. How about the prejudice and hate shown by those who danced in jubilation when the second tower fell? I know the response is to ask, why do they hate us? Let me take a crack at that. They hate us because some of those countries are ruled by monarchs and families who care more about leaving their desert kingdoms for the pleasure resorts of Spain, France, and the United States. They hate us since these families who neglect their own people scapegoat America as a distraction to that neglect. They hate us because we prosper despite our lack of Muslim conviction. They hate us because we have gone farther in 200+ years than they have in over 10 centuries following the Quran. Is that our fault? Violence and hate are never solutions to anger. All people deserve to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity. I agree. But besides indulging in your need to remind us of that fact, don't forget to remind Muslim terrorists all around the world that violence and hate are never solutions to anger and that all people deserve to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity. And should we have the audacity not to be Muslim, we deserve not to die horrific deaths at the hands of brainwashed children who were taught early on that being a suicide bomber is cool. Vengeance and justice are not necessarily the same. Thanks for the tip. We need to work for peace in our communities and around the world. The best way that we can stand up for our country at this point is to unite behind the principles that make us strong. We already do. Whenever tragedy, either man-made or natural, befalls any community of the world, who is the first country asked for help? And who is the first country to respond in kind? CNN did show Afghanis dancing in the streets after America liberated them from the Taliban. Men were allowed to shave off their beards and women could show their faces in public. There was music. I think we already do work for peace in our communities and around the world. Pointy-headed intellectuals just need pay attention. Tolerance is a lifelong endeavor. No, it's not. Tolerance only takes longer when it's not mutual. Avoid stereotyping people or countries that might be home to the terrorists. Impossible, since most of the 19 hijackers on September 11 were Muslim extremists from Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. Do not suggest any group is responsible. Do not repeat the speculations of others, including newscasters. Yes, ignore names like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, the PLO, and Hamas. Avoid the blame game. We don't want to hurt their feelings. Discuss how it would feel to be blamed unfairly by association. And please don't forget to remind the children that when being blamed unfairly by association, they should feel free to stand on the table and declare their innocence. State that they are not a part of the bad. Distance yourselves publicly, since silence gives off the stench of approval. In this case, say that these are bad Muslims and you have nothing in common with them. By the way, does that really require formal discussion? I guess it does, seeing how we are on the eve of the first anniversary of 9/11. Remember what happened then? Let us not forget what brought us here. Let's not forget the funny feeling we all had in our stomachs as the horrific events unfolded systematically that quiet Tuesday morning. Let's not forget the feeling of rage that developed soon after. Let's not forget the sense of family we briefly shared as a nation. If I recall, that's when the left unleashed the word jingoistic. We didn't start this fight, but we must finish it, or we'll feel that funny feeling in our stomachs again. 9/11 must not become just another day or one of many, but hopefully will signify the first day of the end of global terrorism. And maybe that would be the best reason for September 11 to become a national holiday. God bless America.